Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey, Levin here.
Jason?
Derek here.
Okay, third time, not a charm as far as I'm concerned. Kyrie Irving, there are a lot of people who say this is an apology. Now, just so people know, he apologized, not really, and then he was defiant at a news conference. All of a sudden, the team comes out and they say, we're going to give $500,000, and he's going to give $500,000 to the Anti-Defamation League. Adam Silver is outraged that Kyrie continued to be so defiant about the basically blasting out anti-Semitism on in social media. So I mean, he blasted out a link of a movie that was very anti-Semitic. He wouldn't say I'm not anti-Semitic. He wouldn't retract the specifics said in the film. So then he gets a suspension, and then he issues this. You want to read it, and then we'll go through it.
Yeah, I'll read it. So Kyrie posted a rather lengthy post where he said, while doing research on the documentary, I posted a documentary that contained some false anti-Semitic statements, narratives, and language that were untrue and offensive to the Jewish race/religion, and I take full accountability and responsibility for my actions. I am grateful to have a big platform to share knowledge, and I want to move forward by having an open dialogue to learn more and grow from this.
And here's where we get to sort of the crux of it right here.
Yes,
right?
so
the apology issue.
Here's the issue. It comes to all Jewish families and communities that are hurt and affected by my post. I am deeply sorry to have caused you pain, and I apologize. I initially reacted out of emotion to being unjustly labeled anti-Semitic instead of focusing on the healing process of my Jewish brothers and sisters that were hurt from the hateful remarks made in the documentary. I want to clarify any confusion on where I stand fighting against anti-Semitism by apologizing for posting the documentary without context and a factual explanation outlining the specific beliefs in the documentary I agreed with and disagreed with. Here's the key. That was my words. I had no intentions to disrespect any Jewish cultural history regarding the Holocaust.
Stop. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Cultural history regarding the Holocaust. That is not an acknowledgement that the Holocaust existed, because in the documentary, they said it didn't.
Yes.
It didn't happen. And so, now...
Or it was greatly exaggerated. The documentary identifies it as
this may be
falsehood.
Parsing. But
you're not parsing.
I don't
this
think
is very intentional by Kyrie.
Yeah, I don't think I'm parsing at all. He is saying that basically in the culture, in the Jewish culture, we believe in the Holocaust. We believe it happened,
right.
And we believe it happened. Not we believe in it.
We
believe
it. We
believe it happened.
This would be the equivalent
yeah.
to saying I had no intentions to disrespect any Christian cultural heritage regarding Santa Claus.
Correct.
Right.
That's exactly
what he's saying.
When you qualify history with the word Jewish cultural, it makes it sound like folklore or mythology.
Right.
It doesn't make it sound like history. And in the 1940s, the Jews were massacred in the Holocaust. That's a fact.
And he didn't. And he didn't
disavow
disavow the fact. Everybody has been asking about that, and he hasn't responded to it. And he's responding to it this way. This, to me, is not an apology.
And he's going to say, "Well, no matter what I say, there's going to be people who don't like the apology." No. This is a shot. This is in the midst of a long statement, a full-blown shotgun to the stomach.
You know what?
Now, I want to say, well, go ahead. I want to say one thing, though. Some people see this a little bit differently. Some people think that Kyrie Irving is not the brightest bulb necessarily and is trying to sound kind of profound and intellectual, but he's stepping in it.
You know what?
And maybe his intentionality is not to say Jewish cultural history is like folklore, but rather that's just how I describe it.
Can I tell you something? Somebody who is unsophisticated is either going to say, Holocaust existed, Holocaust didn't exist. To start getting into the cultural history of Jews, that is an intentional thought process
to minimize.
That is more sophisticated than saying it did happen or it didn't happen.
Yes, I agree with you. But some people would say he's trying to sound smart.
Well, you know,
and
he
wrote a long thing to sound smart. What do you think, Jay? You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. The more that I read this, though, the more that I think it's inescapable that what he was saying is that I understand that there is disagreement on whether or not the Holocaust happened, but you Jewish people, it's important to you, and I didn't mean to disrespect that.
I tend to agree with your guys' take. I'm just saying there are other people who are saying he's just stepping in it and not able to apologize.
And the other people are the people that we should be talking about right now, because Kyrie Irving is one person. There is a thing on Twitter now where a lot of people are saying, I stand with Kyrie Irving.
Right.
They're not standing with Kyrie with a, quote, apology to Jews.
Yeah. They're standing like the people on the 405 stood with Kanye.
Yeah. And I don't know if you heard last night, but the feds issued a warning to all Jewish synagogues in New Jersey that there apparently is some plan for some kind of a mass shooting or, some calamity that is being planned that the feds are trying to give a heads up to.
Yep.
That's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
You know who is not stepping up against Kyrie? The NBA. They have suspended him for 5 games. Now let's go back. I know it's
Minimum
a bit of
5 games.
Minimum 5 games. It's a bit of apples and oranges here, but Ime Udoka, the coach of the Boston Celtics, who had a consensual affair with an employee of the Celtics, was suspended for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
But this man's anti-Semitic, playing on tropes, linking to documentaries,
Multiple opportunities to clarify and
refusal to do so. Adam Silver's correct outrage gets him 5 games.
Right.
And by the way, notwithstanding those 5 games, he will earn $40 million this year, $34 million. Some
Jason and I were talking
ungodly
about the state we're in, where the ability to accurately calibrate outrage over different infractions. I mean, I think Ime Udoka also deserved to be punished for his actions. It's just odd to see such a disparity. They are apples and oranges, but we're not even calibrating the outrage in a way that's productive, because as you said, the rise in sort of anti-Semitic hate and potential violence is on the rise. This is all it takes is just this rhetoric. And then all of a sudden you have hate towards a whole group.
It's on the rise like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
It's on the rise
scary.
like a rocket ship. And again, I'm sorry for sounding like a broken record. Guys, if you are listening to this, anybody who's listening to this, get the PBS app. It's $15. It's worth it. They have a documentary series with Ken Burns called The U.S. and the Holocaust. Gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. It explains a lot about America, about how anti-Semitism was laced through America for a long, long time, and what we did as a nation during the Holocaust. Because if you think it was Germany there and us here, it is far more connected than that. And and I'm sorry for raising this again, but it's real interesting to me that when I was in school, Charles Lindbergh was simply a hero. That Charles Lindbergh was revered. I revered him when I was reading, because I love airplanes. And, I've been to the Aerospace Museum in D.C. 50 times, honestly. And
he's one of the nastiest anti-Semites in American history.
But not just a nasty anti-Semite.
Public.
Yeah. Henry Ford was a nasty anti-Semite. So was Walt Disney. They didn't do it necessarily on a public platform. Charles Lindbergh was the head of the America First project at the organization during World War II. When Franklin Roosevelt was condemning anti-Semitism, he was on the exact other side. He wanted to fight with the Nazis. He wanted to move to Germany. It was public.
And he had rallies in Madison Square Garden.
Pro-Nazi-
Lots of people.
pro-Nazi
Pro-Nazi rallies, not quietly.
Huge
During
rallies.
World War II.
Yes.
Huge rallies during World War II supporting the Nazis. And he was the counterpoint to Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah, thought we picked the wrong side.
And it was never meant. And look, and I understand too, this is not unique. I mean, there's so much about Black history.
Christopher Columbus.
Well, there's so much about Black history and so much that was buried, and I get it. And all of it's wrong. But my God, Charles Lindbergh, to celebrate him and knowing what everybody knew and not even uttering a word. I never knew about that when I was growing up.
I didn't know about it when I was growing up either, and I'm 20 years younger than you. I didn't know
Nor
about
did
it when
I.
I was
You
growing
look
up.
10.
Yeah. Well,
Nor did I. And I
feel
was a
like-
kid of the 80s, and he wasn't talked about in these terms. So.
You look 4. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Takeoff.
Tragic.
It's so tragic. Now we know what this was all about. And it's just hard to process that what they were squabbling about, and by the way, Takeoff wasn't even part of the squabble, but what they were squabbling about was just stupid,
Trash
and
talking.
petty,
Yeah.
and nothing.
Right.
And it resulted in his death.
It is the most petty thing you can imagine. They were trash talking about who's better at basketball.
Well,
they had a game of dice.
They were arguing
and
a little bit
Quavo
about dice.
apparently
A
lost.
little bit about dice,
Yeah.
but then it turned into, hey, I'm better than you at basketball, and we would kill you on the court. We would sort of beat you. this is ridiculous, and it highlights
And
sort of the
that's-
tragedy of
that's
guns
what-
going off and
that's
now a
what
life
happened.
is taken.
Yeah,
It's
they're
absurd.
arguing about who could beat who at basketball, and it's just unbelievable that we've come to this.
There's no words for it. I mean, it is absolutely tragic to think that weapons were fired, a life was taken over a
over shit talking,
over posturing.
about posturing, right? About who's better at basketball, and they're not even on a basketball court.
And Takeoff wasn't even part of this.
And he was just an innocent bystander.
And you know, just I got to tell you, just to think about, you know, any murder, there's just no way a family fully recovers ever from it. But when something this dumb happens, that that this is what happened.
Well, Charlie talked about it in our room, Charlie Cotton. This is the problem with guns. They're like this permanent final solution to everything. They change everything in one shot. And we could have just had a fist fight. We could have rumbled. They could have fought. They could have, jawed back and forth, had a little bit of a fight. It's ridiculous to me.
It's ridiculous. Okay, let's talk about Jeff Bezos and Jay-Z. I think this is fascinating. That we found out that they have been talking to financial institutions about possibly buying the Commanders.
Yeah.
That's historic.
Well, it's
If it happens.
we've seen this before,
Magic.
right? Which is insanely wealthy magnates like Jeff Bezos teaming up with celebrities who are insanely wealthy in their own right. In this case, Jay-Z, to buy sports franchises. It would be a fantastic thing. First of all, the owner of the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders, Daniel Snyder, has had recently been accused of horrible acts of misogyny and doing awful things to women. Not personally doing awful things, but the treatment of his female subordinates and employees. He's being pushed out by the NFL. He has expressed a willingness to comply with the NFL's desire to get rid of him. So people are stepping up. We've heard some other people, Byron Allen and a couple of other people, have sort of lightly suggested they might be involved. But the most serious bidder, once you have Bezos involved, you obviously have the most serious bidder because nobody can outbid him. And then Jay-Z has teamed up with him as well, and it's an interesting pair.
And Jay-Z is really interesting because Jay-Z, even though Jeff Bezos could buy it on his own, Jay-Z can get investors.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Bezos wants that credibility of having Jay-Z. Yeah.
Well, and that's a huge thing because it would be the first black owner of a team.
NFL team, yeah.
NFL
yeah.
team.
'Cause Magic Johnson did this,
I meant an NFL team.
right? With the Dodgers, no?
Yeah, and you have Michael Jordan with the
Yeah.
But the first
Charlotte Hornets.
NFL owner, and also just the credibility that he brings to everything, and the excitement.
Yeah.
And also, I got to say, Jeff Bezos. We haven't talked enough about the transformation of Jeff Bezos. That he was this kind of Wizard of Oz type guy that you didn't see that much. He was behind the curtain, pulling all the strings. He's now a full-blown celebrity.
He's a full-blown
and
celebrity.
And looks the part.
Loves it.
Yes.
Loves it.
Hit the gym, got a cute girlfriend, the whole deal.
Nothing wrong with it, but the transformation is, I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
It's incredible. He has gone from, like you said, this nerdy guy who started this book company into the second richest man in the world, and beyond that, a full-blown celebrity. He's dating, obviously, Lauren Sanchez. He's hanging out with celebrities as much as he possibly can. He's traveling on fabulous vacations to the Mediterranean all summer long, and now he's looking to buy a
Not
sports
unlike
team.
Elon Musk's transformation. Elon Musk was the balding little computer nerd.
And there's one smoking gun in this, which is that the restaurants they choose to go to, they choose the 5 restaurants where there are paparazzi
at all times.
all the time.
Yes.
All the time. And there's nothing wrong with it at all. And at all. But he is so now in the zeitgeist of pop culture.
Yes, he is.
And loves it. I mean, you can just feel it. I mean,
I agree. There's a transparency to their transformation to celebrityhood because they're not very, I don't want to say sophisticated celebrities, but they do go to the hot spots where you go to be seen. It's not like they're hiding their, sort of desire to be in the limelight. Like some, Leo DiCaprio wears a low ball cap. He doesn't go to those places. But when you try to join that world, you go to Madeo. You go to the Ivy.
Nobu.
You go to Nobu.
Craig's,
It's
Nobu,
very
right.
funny to me.
Let me ask you a question. Amazon stock has dropped well over 50% from its highs. I know this acutely and personally. We're talking probably over $100 billion in potential wealth from Jeff Bezos alone has gone away.
Right.
Does he have the same when that's happening
No,
to somebody?
I can already answer.
Okay.
I've read books on him.
Yeah.
And people like Jeff Bezos believe so in themselves that it's all recoverable.
Yeah.
It's all recoverable. He is.
It's all just paper losses.
God, I hope so.
Same for us.
One of these books talked about his focus, and his focus is it's so singular that he can block out everything else in the world. So when he sets his mind to something, he believes, and usually can, accomplish it.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things that made Jeff Bezos Jeff Bezos. But I don't think look, and you got to remember, too, he lost $100 billion.
He still has another $100 billion behind.
Yeah. Is there any softer landing than when you're Jeff Bezos losing $100 billion?
Yeah.
And he's kind of stepped away from Amazon.
Yeah. Yes.
I just always think back to Steve Jobs. That Steve Jobs, when he stepped away, it started to do poorly at Apple, and then he came back and was a hero that he couldn't have been had he never left.
That's right. That's right.
Or it could go the other way, where Bill Gates stepped away and just has been living as a philanthropist, and Microsoft took off. So
Yeah.
you can leave, and it can also be fine.
Well,
and there can be
no.
good stewards.
But
in
I think
place.
Bill Gates' narrative is, I had this company in such a good position that I can now do good for the rest of the world.
The narrative plays out however you want it to play out.
Yes.
It's like I put it on the path to the success
Right,
it's has, and I've been able to do this. If it failed, well, that's not my. The idea is to get out while it's on top.
Amazon has a huge NFL deal, by the way, too, with
Yeah.
showing games.
Every
so if
Thursday
he
night is on
buys
Amazon Prime.
yeah, he
Right.
can actually help his own team. You might see
wonder
more
if he-
Commanders games. There's a little bit of conflict of interest.
Divest himself of that.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
are saying it with Twitter and Elon Musk, because Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter, brought a bunch of engineers from Tesla in,
Yeah.
and they're saying, you can't use Tesla. That's a different public company. Tesla shareholders don't want their engineers used at your personal plaything. But anyway.
Since you mentioned Tesla, let's spend 2 minutes on it, because there's something I want to talk about as soon as we're done to end this thing, because this is all I've been thinking about. But before we do, let's do Twitter. So it looks like, as we do the podcast right now, it looks like Elon's going to fire half the staff today.
Yeah.
Ominous letter, huh?
Ominous.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even ominous. It's like, pack your
Pack your
bags,
stuff,
pack your
right.
box.
We're going to lock the doors.
Right.
We're turning off your key cards.
So he's clearly going to do it. And, there are people, it's just the weirdest reaction that people have. He bought the company.
it's his.
It's his.
It is a private company owned by Elon Musk.
This idea that somebody has an entitlement to work at Twitter because they used to work at Twitter or before it was owned by Elon Musk is preposterous.
Yeah, he owns the company. It's a totally brand new company that he owns. He can do whatever he wants.
It's so funny because I think about, like, my dad owned a liquor store. And I just think, really, look, I understand the difference in scope for sure. And
But
I
just
also
in
understand
scope.
the difference in importance. But, like, if somebody came into my dad's liquor store when he owned it and said, you shouldn't be selling that liquor. You should be selling that liquor. This is wrong. Don't sell, I don't know, Smirnoffs because it's Russian or whatever. Although I don't think it's Russian. I'm not sure.
No, it's not.
Right.
It was labeled a
But
Russian
whatever,
brand, right?
whatever. It's like, it's his company.
And just to take it further, these employees are
And
now
I'm not saying that it's great for America.
certainly not supporting what Elon Musk is doing
Right.
at all, but we're just simply saying that these employees are now saying they want to file a class action against him for wrongful termination. I mean, imagine taking your father's liquor store. Imagine if he bought it from somebody. It was a pre-existing liquor store,
That's
right?
why it was called Rick's. My dad's name wasn't Rick.
That's right. Imagine if the cashier was like, "Oh, you can't fire me just because you bought the company. This is my job forever." No, your dad's coming in. He said, "I want my little Harvey to work the cash
Now,
register here."
I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Their lawsuit, they're trying to say there are notice requirements under California law that
Yeah,
employees
okay.
deserve certain types
Okay,
of
yeah,
notice.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like tenants deserve
No, I
certain
get it, but you
notice.
You can
and
either give
but
them
that's-
notice or you can pay them out a little bit, and that's all he's doing.
And if
Right.
he's
No, I
violating the
agree.
law, he should answer to that.
Sure.
We get it. Anyway, okay, I want to talk about something. So I have been reading and watching everybody talking about the midterms and hand-wringing and all this. And look, I mean, I have grave doubts about our democracy surviving. I really do. And I hate to say that, but I do. And I'm listening to everybody from Joe Biden on down saying, democracy is at stake, everybody. You've got to go to the polls and vote to support and defend democracy. And you hear it on the other side too, where people are saying, yeah, democracy, guns, and this. Everybody's talking about defending democracy. I've just been thinking so much about this. I don't think Americans are that into democracy. And here's why I say
Wow,
that.
this is a hot
Yeah.
take. Go.
I don't think they
You
are.
think we want to go back to King?
You look at what's going on right now in this country, and the recent polls show 50% of the people are not going to believe the results of the election. They say that they have doubts about the legitimacy of elections. There are people who are, that you disagree with somebody. They're not your opponents, they're your enemies. Right. We have no tolerance anymore in this country for anything. Those are foundational issues with democracy. And if people really believe in democracy, not the word, it's easy to say, I believe in democracy.
Right. Sounds
but
good.
when you drill down and you look at the principles of democracy and you look at what's going on in this country from all sides, especially the wingnuts on the right. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion. But the intolerance is everywhere.
The intolerance is spread evenly across the board.
Everywhere.
The desire to say, which some have kind of say, I don't care what the people say the voters have voted for. We are going to install these people in government, period.
And shockingly, see, I thought that was all a Republican thing.
Yeah.
It's more a Republican thing, but Democrats are also saying that now.
Yep.
So, Donald Trump has poisoned this well and people have followed. I mean, it's sort of like when you spread anti-Semitism, you see all the people who come out of, the shadows. And, there are a lot of people who come out of the shadows. And in terms of the principles of democracy, those, the tent poles, I don't think people are into it.
There are
and I hate saying that, but I believe that.
Look, there are deep philosophical questions about democracy is extraordinarily hard to run. It is. And having a despot is much, much easier. Top-down autocracies have their value in a certain respect. My worry is that we're not going to get the enlightened despots that we all think we could live with. You're not going to get the benevolent ones.
Yeah, but
you're going to get the awful ones.
You're skating over what I'm asking.
Deep down, do Americans care about having a democratically elected official?
If you believe I'm full of shit, tell me. But I've been texting a friend about this.
Yeah.
And we've just been talking about it. I have real issues.
I don't think it's humans. I think all humans deep down desire just leadership.
But it's not about leadership. You can have leadership in a democracy and a dictatorship. It's about freedom. And it's about, do we really value these freedoms? Do we believe in free speech? And let's all assume we're not talking about hate speech or threatening or anything like that.
Yeah.
But even speech you disagree with.
How valuable are those things to you?
Do you tolerate it?
Let me put a fine point on what you're asking. So if the question is to all the 50% of the country who's anti-Donald Trump, right? If you were to say to those 50%, if voting democratically elected, if we all got together and voted and Donald Trump won, would you want to honor those results, or would you be happy throwing those results out? And then you went to the 42% of Donald Trump supporters and you said, if Donald Trump were to lose fair and square, would you be happy with those results, or would you, despite those results, would you want Donald Trump implanted as president? I think you're right. I think well over 50% of the country on both sides would say, I don't care what the voters say. But it's not worth it. I want this person in, or I want this person out.
But it's not just raw, naked, I want this person in. What it is these people think that it would be good for the country to have Donald Trump, and it would be detrimental for the country and against its democratic will. It would be if the democratic will is to instantiate this person, they're saying, well, instantiating him is bad, so I don't care about the democratic will. I care about the good of the country.
That's to Harvey's point, though. Yes,
but that is what they're saying.
Everybody thinks they're voting for the good of the country. Nobody would say they're not voting for the good of the country.
Right, but no one is saying they're anti-democratic. Everyone is just saying the value of the country is higher than democratic
Nobody
institutions.
says it, but what are they? But when you look at what they're saying, I mean, are they really democratic?
No, they're not. They're deeply not.
I was deeply involved in Robert Kennedy's presidential campaign. And, when he was assassinated, it was hard getting behind Hubert Humphrey, who was the Democratic nominee. But the option was Richard Nixon.
Yes.
And as a young person, as a Democrat, I remember feeling, and especially because of my work with Robert Kennedy, when the night of the election, when Richard Nixon won, was one of the most heartbreaking things that I can. It was, and so many people felt the same way. I mean, you saw all these young people crying. It was a huge election.
Yeah, not the silent majority, but
nobody said this election is invalid. Nobody said he's not my president. We accepted it. And it was horrible and heart-wrenching to do, but it was inconceivable. Today, I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump wins in 2024, and he's going to run, if he wins, there are going to be people saying, well, they installed all these, secretaries of state who are wingnuts. They have engaged in voter intimidation. They have gerrymandered things. They're going to get into a million things.
Yeah.
And
the left is going to attack the legitimacy. Everyone's worried about the right attacking
Well,
the legitimacy.
but if
the
he
left,
loses, the right is going to go crazy.
correct,
right?
but everyone
if
is
he
self-serving.
if he loses,
We've already seen what will happen. It's happening
Exactly.
right now.
oh,
Yeah.
if he loses,
They're going to have an insurrection, and January 6th will happen all over
Right,
again.
but
I think it goes way
Way
beyond
worse, right.
way beyond the Capitol.
But
Right.
so then both sides will be attacking legitimacy.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
So
Yeah.
so I know you said, oh God, when I said it, you said, oh, that's a hot take. It's like,
I didn't know where you were going with it, but I agree with you that there are the vast majority of Americans, I totally agree, would prefer to have their candidate in, especially as it revolves around Donald Trump, that he's a singular personality. As it relates to Donald Trump, a vast majority would like him in or out, regardless of the will of the voters.
correct.
it's
And I'm not so sure it's all bound up with Trump anymore. I think it's bound up with their values. I think if DeSantis were running, they would also say,
I know.
like,
wouldn't be
it's
as extreme.
illegitimate for him to lose.
There's a point
I think
there.
it's
I don't know how-
transferable
yeah,
now. But anyway,
It's
We are becoming a banana republic.
I hate
before our
I-
eyes.
a massively sized, economically dominant banana republic is
I mean,
wild.
Yeah.
Guys, can you imagine what's going to happen in a week? I mean, I don't think we're going to get election results next Tuesday for sure.
Republicans are going to take both the House and Senate. It's not.
Well,
gonna be
no.
close.
But I'm saying, and who knows? There may be certain races,
Yeah.
On the Senate side that are going to be contested. But are people going to accept the 2022 results? I think the losing side, there's going to be a significant number who are going to say it was rigged. No matter who wins
Although
or
it's a
loses.
test of our institutions.
And by
Then
the
we'll
way,
have court
and-
cases like we had last time, and the courts will come down uniformly in one direction, and then we will have
They're
Joe Biden
irrelevant.
has had a presidency.
They're
Yeah,
irrelevant.
but Joe Biden's had a
Well,
presidency.
yeah.
There
I
were
mean-
60 courts that said that the 2020 election was legit.
But he's president.
But Joe
so it's
Biden
not
has been a
irrelevant.
president.
Yeah,
Huh?
it's not- it's
He's
not
had an
irrelevant.
administration.
Because those court systems held
There's
up.
there's so many people are saying the election.
I know, but because those court systems held up, he's sitting in the White House today,
Correct.
making decisions and leading the armed forces.
Donald Trump didn't run the military
Right.
through the
There
White
is a
House.
point there.
There's a
that
point where
so far,
I didn't realize
Okay.
how close we were until
Yes.
these January 6th hearings.
course.
We were super close.
Mike Pence saved the democracy.
Mike-
but for him, we would not have.
He
We
saved
would have
the
Donald
democracy.
Trump sitting with. I'm telling you, without Mike Pence doing what he did, we had Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office
With a
right
military
now
junta,
with
or-
three.
Yeah.
With three deep military surrounding the White House and martial law being imposed in many states in this country.
One
That's
fi-
what we would have right now.
One final question: if Donald Trump were to get elected in 2024, would he ever leave office for the rest of his life?
No, never. Not only that, there would be people imprisoned who spoke out about against and protested against.
I don't think
his-
he'd ever leave. And you know who said that first? Very first? Bill Maher. Bill Maher said it about the first administration. Very early, he said he will never leave willingly. And he was right.
I thought it was Richard
He was
Nixon
born
who said
out.
he'd never leave.
He was.
Have a good weekend.